Looks like we're good to kick off now.
Okay, thank you so much, Lillian. All right. Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our first ever Municipal Exchange. I'm Karen Salurso, and I'm joined by my co-facilitator, Amy Verbovsky, here at DVRPC. And on behalf of us and everybody else at the Commission, we're truly excited to have you here today and grateful for your participation. So this event was born out of conversations with many of you who expressed the need for more engagement, connections, and opportunities to collaborate with DVRPC, as well as each other. Our role as an advisory agency depends on strong partnerships, and while we provide guidance, data, and a regional perspective, we do recognize that municipalities ultimately make land use decisions. That's why your involvement with us is so essential to our process. So we're hoping this exchange will help us achieve several important goals. The first is to strengthen our connection with our municipal partners. Second, to create a two-way dialogue to better understand your needs, challenges, and priorities, and ensure you have a clear understanding of who DVRPC is, what we do, and how we can support your work. Third, we want to provide a space where local leaders can share ideas, challenges, and successful strategies. And finally, we want to help municipal officials understand how local decisions contribute to and impact the broader regional framework. So thank you once again for taking time to be here. So before we jump into the meeting, I just want to review a few meeting logistics. We'd love to know who's in the room, so please drop your name and organization in the chat and introduce yourself. A majority of the discussion will take place during the exchange portion of the meeting, but please feel free to add your questions or comments in the chat or Q&A during the presentations. That room will be monitored throughout. You can use the raise your hand feature at the bottom of the screen if you'd like to contribute to the conversation. Once prompted to speak, you are able to unmute your mic. And if you would like to turn on closed captioning, you can do so in the meeting controls toolbar by clicking Show Captions icon. We also want to be able to see who we're talking to, so please, if you're comfortable, remember to turn your camera off so we can have better engagement. So today, here's a little bit what we're going to cover. I'm going to start with a brief overview of DVRPC and our approach to regional planning. Next, I'm going to share the highlights from our municipal survey conducted earlier this year. We're then going to hear from experts on America250 initiatives and local tourism. After that, we're going to move into the exchange portion of the meeting, which will feature questions and discussion with our panelists and you, the participants. We're going to highlight technical assistance programs available to municipalities at DVRPC. And then I'm going to wrap up with closing remarks and our next steps. And we hope to accomplish this all in 90 minutes. So let's jump into what we have today. So first, DVRPC is the federally designated metropolitan planning organization for the 9 counties in and around Philadelphia, encompassing 2 states, 9 counties, 4 cities, 350 municipalities, and thousands of neighborhoods. We build consensus for a shared regional vision, enable data-based, community-centered solutions, and help put plans into action. We convene partners to work together to address key issues which ultimately implement our long-range plan, Connections 2050. Our long-range plan is built upon 5 main principles of providing a safe, modern, multimodal transportation network, building an inclusive and connected economy, restoring natural resources, creating healthy and walkable communities, finally ensuring we have a clean, affordable infrastructure and utility system resilient to extreme weather. The plan also provides actionable steps that our local partners can take to help us implement that vision. As laid out in Connections 2050, transportation, land use, and economic development are deeply interconnected. Our Livable Community staff, which is housed in our Community Planning Division, addresses a wide range of municipal issues, including smart growth, community revitalization, economic development, environmental planning, and resilience. And this integrated approach helps DVRPC to better understand the broader impacts of transportation investments in our communities across the region. If you'd like to learn more about what DVRPC does, you can visit our website. And today we're going to learn more about how DVRPC is using our integrated approach to address multimodal access to tourist destinations. So a little bit about the survey results that some of you may have participated in earlier. As you know, we conducted a survey to better understand how familiar municipalities are with our work, the challenges our communities are facing, and how we can better support you. So quickly, a few highlights. 94% of the respondents expressed interest in participating in forums such as these. The largest group of respondents were from managers and administrators with over 5 years experience in their current role. The top issues facing municipalities include aging and failing infrastructure, stormwater management and flooding, traffic and transportation challenges, budget constraints, and affordable housing. We were happy to learn that 73% of the respondents are familiar with DVRPC and our resources. While many noted that DVRPC resources support their comprehensive planning efforts, a majority said that they do not significantly influence their planning decisions. We are hoping to change that by making our work more relevant and accessible to your needs. The respondents expressed strong interest in learning about funding opportunities, technical assistance, and subject matter expertise. And there was a clear preference for virtual or hybrid meeting formats. Respondents noted the main barriers to participation included the lack of time, limited staff capacity, and location constraints. And suggestions for improving collaboration included better communication, designated DVRPC liaisons, and more tailored support to each municipality. So thank you again to everyone who did respond. Your feedback informed the creation of this forum as well as today's conversation. So to get us started with the focus of today's exchange, I'm going to launch a quick poll, which Lillian I can no longer do because I can't see it. So Lillian is going to launch a quick poll. Okay, thank you so much. Today's question is, how familiar are you with America250, the national effort to commemorate the 250th anniversary of the US? Okay. And if you're not familiar, but it looks like everybody's familiar, that would be okay too, because that's somewhat the point of today. Okay. All right, well, it looks like, oh, we're still coming in. So a majority are very familiar or somewhat familiar. I think we're still very familiar. So everyone knows what A250 is. Okay. All right. Thank you, Lillian. Well, that helps our speakers who we have here today understand who's in the room and understand sort of the knowledge base here. So Lillian, thank you for sharing that. And thank you everyone for voting. So I'm just going to set the stage a little bit more for our discussion. DVRPC's work focuses on transportation access, whether it's to jobs, housing, or opportunities. And today we're looking specifically at access to tourist destinations and preparing for our nation's 250th anniversary. And we know tourist attractions are places that attract individuals for many reasons, and they can be a destination can be as large as a country or small as a city or a particular site. In our region, the city of Philadelphia is hosting several large-scale events, from the annual Wawa Welcome America Festival to international sporting events like the FIFA World Cup and the Major League Baseball All-Star Game. And these celebrations not only mark the founding of our nation, but our shared history and future. But they're also an opportunity for our communities to create lasting impact moving forward. Let me just move that. So today we have 4 subject matter experts who are going to help us explore how communities across our region can build on this historic moment, and including what types of resources may be available to our municipal partners. First, we have Dr. Emily Sneff, who's an early American historian and leading expert on the Declaration of Independence. Emily is currently a consulting curator for exhibitions planned for the 250th anniversary of the Declaration in 2026. Next, we have Jennifer Martin, who is the executive director at Friends of Washington Crossing National Park in Bucks County. And then we had 2 DVRPC staff members who will be joining us. First is Spencer Gober, who's our manager of economic and community development, who's going to highlight our role in access to tourist destinations at the commission. And last is Tom Stead, who is going to be presenting DVRPC Supporting Communities program, highlighting technical assistance for local partners. So to get things moving, I'm going to introduce Emily as our first speaker.
Great. Thank you so much, Karen. I'm so pleased to be with you all today. As Karen mentioned, I am a consulting curator for a few different sites in the Delaware Valley for the 250th, as well as 250th organizations. I'm actually coming to you this morning from the Museum of the American Revolution, where I'm helping with our training for our visitor experience folks today in the exhibit, The Declaration's Journey, which will be opening next week. So already 250th things are happening. But what I wanted to mostly speak with you all about today at the invitation of the DVRPC folks is what we're doing in Historic Trap, where I'm the historian and consulting curator helping to put together a really exciting slate of programs and opportunities next year. So Historic Trap is located in Trap in the Collegeville area, so very convenient to 422. And Historic Trap has 5 properties, 2 of which are open to the public right now, and a third will be opening next year. We have the homes of the Muhlenberg family. So Henry Muhlenberg was one of the first prominent Lutheran ministers in what became the United States. And his family moved into their home on Main Street in Trap on July 11th, 1776. So a week after the Declaration of Independence. And within that home, we can tell the story of the refugee crisis caused by the Revolutionary War, that there were evacuations from Philadelphia and people needed places to safely store their belongings, but also to stay while they were in this process of moving out of Philadelphia. And the Muhlenberg home became a sort of safe haven for people. Then right down the street, we have another home from Frederick Muhlenberg, Henry's son, which we call the Speaker's House because Frederick was the first Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives. This home was saved from demolition 25 years ago and has been in the process of restoration and reconstruction ever since. And we are pushing to meet the deadline to have a grand opening in April, where we'll have a lot of public officials, municipal representatives, and all the funders and folks who have been involved in the process. We'll welcome them to our big ribbon cutting ceremony to celebrate this community-driven restoration work to save essentially a founding father's home in our own backyard. The house is a really exciting opportunity for 250th programming because we can talk about the creation of new government, right? So we tend to think about 250th as more of a, marking the Revolutionary War or the Declaration of Independence. But what Frederick Muhlenberg's story represents is what comes next. How do you create new governments independent of the systems that came before? And he served in a number of political offices. So these 2 homes, which are right on Main Street in Trap, tell very different stories and also represent an immigrant community in the sort of founding era of the United States, which is very exciting for us. Historic Trap is also a leading sponsor of Perkiomen Valley 250, which is a regional effort that we launched and have been picking up municipal support to meet the needs of historic sites and nonprofits for the long 250th. So not just July 4th, 2026, though as a historian of the Declaration, I'm happy that people are paying attention to that date. But thinking about 2027 and 28, when you have the anniversaries of the Philadelphia campaign and the encampment at Valley Forge. So we want to sustain support over this multi-year initiative to get the tremendous numbers of visitors who are going to be coming to this area for the sporting events, but also the history that we have to offer, but also to engage local residents and have all of that work fuel local economies to bring people's attention to Main Street businesses, to green spaces, as well as our historic sites. If you want to learn more about that, please feel free to visit pv250.org. And the region that we're kind of looking at stretches from Valley Forge north to Green Lane. So the sort of western part of Chester and Montgomery counties, and the areas where we can kind of go to Valley Forge and beyond to learn these Revolutionary War stories. I also wanted to give one final plug, which is for a workshop series that I lead called Virtual Workshops for the 250th. And these are drawn from my experience of consulting with different organizations, focusing on what you need to know about the Declaration of Independence, how to prepare for events planned around readings of the Declaration, which are going to be very popular in different counties next year in this area. And then a history of the 4th of July to give context to the kinds of public events that your areas might be hosting. These workshops I held in May and they were very well attended. I'm offering them again in November. So if you or anyone in your organization would like a sort of primer to get that history, but also to brainstorm ideas for what to do next year, please go to declarationstories.org/workshops and you can take a look at those. I think that's everything I have to sort of set up, and I look forward to the discussion.
Thanks, Emily. I'm going to invite Jennifer to speak.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to Karen and the whole DVRPC team for allowing me to be here. I do want to say that I have the great pleasure of knowing Emily, and several of my staff members have attended her workshops, and they are fantastic. Even if you're not interested in history, I mean, we are, but it's not for everyone. I think that the workshops are really great to kind of understand the broader connection that we all share. And the 250th for me is really an opportunity to kind of celebrate and acknowledge and honor the fact that there are so many freedoms that were, started 250 years ago that we're still enjoying today. And I think that for me, I think a lot about the 250th as the present and being in the present and just getting out and honoring and learning about our history in a way where we're essentially creating new histories together. So I just want to say those workshops are certainly worth attending. If you are not familiar with Washington Crossing Historic Park, and I'm hoping many of you are, we are a site that commemorates the crossing of the Delaware that took place on Christmas night in 1776. We host a fantastic reenactment of the crossing, and I can say that because even before my 10 years here, I would attend it and I really enjoyed it. And the crossing in 2026 is going to be an especially exciting one because we're doing a 3-day event with the Mid-Atlantic Continental Line, who's a very large consortium of reenacting groups. And we're expecting double the attendance that we've had in the past. So if you haven't been before, this is definitely your year to come in 2026. And if you're not looking forward to all of the large crowds, this might be your year to come in 2025. So definitely I encourage you to get out and see it. In addition to working with Friends of Washington Crossing Park, I also have the great pleasure of working with the Bucks 250 as a board member and being a part of a lot of the initiatives that they're planning. In particular, they're very focused on doing a handful of events that really encourage strategic partnership and bringing groups together to give them a sense of how they can partner to create a larger regional impact. So we hosted a fantastic event at the Mercer Museum. The Mercer Museum is not an 18th century or Rev War site, but they have a fantastic exhibit focused around the Revolution to kind of give people a sense of how even if you're not directly tied, that there are opportunities for you to share unique histories. We hosted a fantastic event that was around the importance of culturally relevant education, which is really going to be a key piece of sharing the 250th. And that's something that we're certainly very mindful about our site. A lot of our programs, initiatives are really focused on not just General Washington and his officers, but the contributions of average Americans, people of color, women, so that really everybody can see themselves in the history. And that's what that workshop was about with Bucks 250. We're hosting a fantastic teachers workshop in a couple weeks where we're going to be talking about how teachers can share this history with their students. And then we're also going to be doing a map that focuses on the Revolution in Bucks County, but also some of the larger institutions like the Museum of the American Revolution, if you're in the area, and just other area attractions to go to. As part of the Bucks 250, we're not really just focused on the 250 itself, which of course is important, but creating dialogue, resources, and relationships that will live on in perpetuity, so that the 250th becomes not the end, but the catalyst for something larger. And I agree with Emily that there will be many opportunities over the next 5 years for us looking towards the surrender of Yorktown, where there's going to be a lot of anniversaries going on, where people can get out and celebrate their history. So thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. And then last, Spencer Gober from DVRPC is going to talk a little bit about DVRPC's involvement with local tourism efforts. And after Spencer, we're going to move into the exchange portion. So Spencer.
Thanks, Karen, and good morning again, everyone. As Karen mentioned, I'm Spencer Gober, and I manage the Office of Community and Economic Development here at DVRPC. Although our work addresses a variety of topics ranging from downtown revitalization to workforce development, I want to spend the majority of my time today talking about our work related to multimodal access to tourist destinations, which is one reason why today's conversation is focused on planning for the America250 celebrations. But instead of going into detail on the work itself, I hope to instead demonstrate all the ways in which DVRPC can be leveraged as a resource for our municipal partners, and do so by using this body of work as an example. So next slide, please. To start, I thought it would be helpful to actually explain why DVRPC is even involved in tourism in the first place, since a lot of times people are surprised to hear that we are. 10 years ago, Congress passed the FAST Act, which requires all MPOs like DVRPC to undertake work that seeks to enhance travel and tourism. But thankfully, the legislation was pretty vague, so it has allowed us a pretty good bit of flexibility in how we execute that work. Next slide, please. Since the act was vague, we've been able to, again, have some latitude on how we've executed that work over the past 10 years, and we've covered a variety of topics. Our first effort really sought to better understand and measure exactly what the tourism industry looks like in Greater Philadelphia and what its impacts are. Next slide, please. What we found is that there are several sectors of the economy that actually make up what we call the tourism industry. But in short, it's $1 billion industry in our region, and it employs a significant number of people. So we were also then able to leverage that work to inform our future work going forward. Once we knew what the tourism was and where it was located across the region, we were able to gauge accessibility in terms of transportation to and from, and that's transportation for tourists as well as the workforce that's employed in this sector, which is really the core mission of MPOs. Next slide. We found that some of the region's largest tourist attractions, like Longwood Gardens, were not served by transit, and that in New Jersey, tourism investment districts are increasingly used by municipalities as ways to generate revenue. The key takeaway for our municipal partners today is that through our research and analysis, we can help formulate specific recommendations to support more tourism efforts. Next slide. As we all know, the COVID-19 pandemic impacted every aspect of the economy, but the tourism industry and accommodation sector specifically were hit particularly hard. So in 2021, we used data on hotel occupancy rates and room rates to actually measure the impact that the pandemic had on the region's hotel industry. Next slide. We found that the impacts were more severe in Center City and were generally less severe in the suburban counties. But the key takeaway that I hope our municipal partners take from this work today is that DVRPC is a great resource for data and analysis, and that we can be leveraged as a resource for data sets to help you better understand local economic dynamics in your communities. Next slide. At the request of our county partners in 2022, we explored the feasibility of ferry service along the Delaware River with a specific focus of understanding how to connect tourists and tourist destinations on both sides of the New Jersey and Pennsylvania sides of the region. Next slide, please. And I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation that our mandate on tourism-related work is fairly vague, which means we're able to receive and consider specific requests from our partners on what we focus on from one year to the next. And because chances are, if one community is facing an issue, there are other communities in the region that are also facing a similar problem. And so by hearing from our partners on these issues and these topics, we're able to take a more regional look at them. Next slide, please. As we began to emerge from the pandemic in 2023, we wanted to better understand what recovery looked like in the hospitality and tourism industry specifically. Next slide. So we hosted a webinar with several subject matter experts, including folks from the Federal Reserve Bank and from Temple University. We often invite outside experts to attend and speak at events, much like the one we are hosting today, as a way to really ourselves learn from their expertise, but also to provide an opportunity for knowledge sharing with and amongst our partners. Next slide. This past year, DVRPC published Destination Delaware Valley, which includes findings from an analysis of top tourist destinations in every county. Staff looked at metrics like walk and bike scores and transit accessibility. We even used proprietary geolocated cell phone data to determine the home locations of people who were visiting these tourist destinations. Next slide. And I've mentioned data several times today, but I think Destination Delaware Valley really shows how DVRPC can leverage our robust data sets, which are sometimes even proprietary data sets, to your benefit to help you understand specific planning related issues in your communities. Next slide. And since 2023, we've been convening quarterly meetings of America250 stakeholders, which include our county partners, destination marketing organizations, transit agencies, and even state-level A250 reps, with the goal of facilitating conversations and enabling greater collaboration and coordination. Next slide, I'm sorry. Beyond this newly formed Municipal Exchange, we often bring together various stakeholders and planning partners to share knowledge and experiences with one another. Again, the goal to really sort of help learn from one another, to make sure that we're all rowing in the same direction and that we're providing support to our partners as best we can. Next slide. So in closing, our work on multimodal access to tourist destinations is broad and it covers a lot of topics, but I think it really exemplifies all the ways in which we can support our municipal partners throughout the region, whether it's by analyzing our data sets to help better understand an issue in your community or through conversations like the one that we're about to have today. So with that, I will turn things over to my colleague, Amy Verbofsky.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Spencer. And just big thank you to Emily, Jennifer, and Spencer for sharing their work with us today. We're now going to move into the exchange portion of our session. So I'm going to begin with a few questions for our speakers, but we encourage folks to jump in. Please add your questions in either the chat box or Q&A. My colleagues are monitoring those. And if you want to join us on camera, if you want to kind of make this more conversational, please just use the raise hand function, and we'll call on you to unmute as well. So I guess with that, I'm going to ask a first question to Emily, but I encourage any of our speakers to chime in as well. You mentioned that the Perkiomen Valley 250 initiative is bringing attention to local businesses, and economic development is something we really wanted to focus on. Can you elaborate a bit on kind of what opportunities A250 could provide for municipalities in terms of economic development and specifically that kind of like Main Street economic development?
Absolutely. So after conversations with our local borough, in particular, leadership, we got the sense that there is excitement among local businesses, from restaurants to smaller boutique hotels, to Main Street shopping, to kind of engage with the 250th, and that by offering a focused branding and marketing and sort of itinerary to potential visitors, we can benefit everyone. So we're right now in the process of bringing on corporate sponsors from the sort of large employers in the area, right down to those Main Street businesses that will benefit from increased foot traffic. I think one thing that we have identified is there are a lot of people who will be coming to Philadelphia. There are a lot of people who will not want to be in Philadelphia during the hyper sort of focused attention of July 4th next year. And not everyone who visits this area will be able to stay in Philadelphia So they'll be looking to those hotels that are out in Montgomery, Bucks, and Chester counties, as well as across the river in New Jersey. So we wanted to, from the outset, provide resources for visitors, to create a day trip for them, a weekend trip, to point out as well the opportunities for accessing parks, trails, and our phenomenal sort of outdoor spaces to complement the historic sites in the area and really provide a well-rounded experience for folks who are looking for the unique restaurant experiences and the unique shopping and merchandise and all of that. So more to come, but that was our kind of intention after beginning conversations with folks.
And just to clarify, is that something you're doing kind of at the Perkiomen Valley, like regional scale, or something you're doing with TRAP? Kind of what scale are you working at that on?
It is at the regional scale, and it is thinking about, the range of municipals sort of distribution in that area, from a very large township like Upper Marion Township all the way to Green Lane Borough, which has like 400 people in it, and just celebrated their 150th a few weeks ago. So yeah, we're trying to use from the conversations that we've had with TRAP Borough to expand out to other municipalities as well. And we have a number of sort of Main Street revitalization projects that have been happening in the Perkiomen Valley region, from Collegeville to other places. So it seems like a sort of hot button issue for folks that they're really excited to engage during this historical anniversary.
Awesome, thank you. And I want to, I guess, offer it to Jennifer or Spencer if they have any thoughts kind of on economic development specifically, and kind of how communities can leverage A250 and all the events to kind of drive more development within these communities.
Yeah, I mean, I'll share a little bit. So we certainly, and I'm glad Spencer talked a lot about the importance of data. This is something we're certainly very mindful at the park, looking at a lot of the data that Visit Bucks County is putting together, a lot of the data that Visit Philadelphia is putting together. Just to give you some numbers wise, we get about 750,000 visitors a year. We get about 65,000 in December for the 2 crossing reenactments. And we know for a fact that the kinds of people that are visiting, where they're coming from, what their interest is, and we're utilizing a lot of that data that's being put together through places like Visit Philadelphia, through Visit Bucks County, to kind of get a sense of what they need, what the amenities are when they come to these regions. On our website, we have these great plan your visit pages. We have some targeted itineraries. We know from the data that not only will people not want to stay in Philadelphia, they will not be able to stay in Philadelphia. There's simply not enough hotels, restaurants, things like that to accommodate out of town visitation. So by creating these itineraries, by creating these really easy wayfinding materials, by having things like free parking, we really can ensure that we're capitalizing as Bucks County and just the surrounding regions on visitors that will not be able to stay in Philadelphia. So definitely, a lot of businesses are really excited. A lot of the businesses that are in our area are even open on Christmas because they're getting a lot of visitation for things like, restaurants. A lot of we're actually working right now with several hotels because I said this is going to be a Continental Line event. So not only in 2026, not only do we have 30% of our visitors coming in from out of the region, but we have double the participants that'll be participating as reenactors in 2026. So I definitely think local business is important, but having very easy wayfinding resources. 35% of visitors plan their visit online before they come, and that's just looking at statistics. So making it easy for people to come to us is how they will come. So.
Awesome, thanks. You touched on something I want to get back to, but I do want to offer Spencer the chance to talk about economic development really quickly.
Yeah, thanks, Amy, because both Jennifer and Emily made points that I want to make sure I underscore. Jennifer just said that local is important, and I could not agree with you more. And that echoes something that Emily said about being unique and offering unique experiences. And I think, as we're going into the 250th, everyone is going to be celebrating or doing something under that 250th umbrella, right? So the local challenge is to find a way to differentiate yourself and make what you're offering unique to pull people in. And Emily, you highlighted all of the stuff that makes TRAP unique and all of the work that you're doing there. And I think if municipalities can find what their local assets are and really double down on those to differentiate yourself in the next year.
Awesome, thank you. I'm going to jump over to something that Jennifer said about wayfinding, because that's one question I had is kind of, what local infrastructure investments, transportation wayfinding. I didn't even think about wayfinding in the sense of like a web page and directing you to an itinerary. Broadband, public spaces, what are kind of infrastructure like this is going to make the biggest difference for communities in hosting A250 events? I don't know if Jennifer, you want to take a stab at that?
Yeah, I'm definitely happy to comment on that. So I will say within the park, we're really focused on a couple things. We're focused on preservation and reopening of our historic buildings, dynamic visitor experiences, but one of the biggest things are these large community-wide celebrations, one of which we already have about 2,000 people that join us every year for 4th of July, and about 10,000 people that join us for the crossing reenactments, and we do this twice in December. And I always, if you don't know what a reenactment is, we actually do the reenactment of the crossing. We have people that dress up, don the clothes, do the crossing. But one of the things that we've thought about as part of these large community-wide celebration is we've literally removed and are putting in 75 brand new cohesive wayfinding signs throughout the park. We are, and right, there's a cost to that, but what there isn't a cost to is putting all this information online, so we're also making sure that people know where to park, where to come in, what's nearby, where they can stay. So making sure that people are prepared to visit and that it's easy for them, right? Like if it's easy for them to come here, that might be the difference between them staying somewhere else. So that's something that we're really focused on. But infrastructure wise, we also have put in 2 CXT restrooms. We're currently renovating another restroom, just really making sure that when people are coming to the site, that there are the amenities to support this increased visitation. We're putting in a brand new, we're redoing, repaving and putting in a brand new ADA accessible trail, like just making sure that when visitors come to the site, that it's easy for them to get around the site. And all of this information is online for them too, so that they know how they're going to navigate when they get here.
Great. Spencer, Emily, did either of you have any thoughts on wayfinding or, okay, yeah. And I want to kind of encourage anybody that's out in the chat, if you have thoughts on like what your community would need, or if there's things that you think, infrastructure that you'd like to see that would help your community be better prepared to kind of engage with these events, please feel free to put it in the chat, raise your hand, let us know. Spencer, I saw you come off mute.
Yeah, it's not exactly wayfinding, but I did want to piggyback off of a point that Jennifer made with regards to promoting yourself online, and there's no cost to being in a digital space. And in the retail industry, there's a term called the halo effect, which talks about the sort of the benefit that online stores have for having a physical store as well, and vice versa. And so you can't just think of your municipality as existing in the physical realm. You need to also be present in the digital realm to make sure that you're bringing people from outside in. And that can't be more true in the year to come.
Yeah. And I just want to acknowledge, we had a comment or question in the chat about translating wayfinding into many languages, and specifically referencing the FIFA like World Cup of soccer events that are coming. Do you guys have any thoughts on kind of how, if that's something that you're looking at, or how to do more about translating so it's available to a lot of different folks?
Yeah, just to say it's a really necessary investment of time and effort. You can look into data of the expected visitation for the World Cup and kind of plan languages accordingly. And this, thinking about historic sites as well as hotels and other, sort of businesses. If you make the information accessible and familiar, it's going to sort of increase the experience for everyone who's coming. One particular challenge thinking about wayfinding and infrastructure is a lot of international visitors will be expecting more mass transit options than what our area kind of has. So from our perspective, being sort of outside of Philadelphia, located off 422, but really mostly just regular roads, thinking about how can we provide mapping, how can we provide directions that make sense to folks who are unfamiliar with the region, while also meeting the needs of local folks who don't know what's in their own backyard. Those are two very different sort of approaches for mapping and itineraries. So it may be as simple as creating, the same document in multiple languages, or you may have to think a little bit more critically about how to deliver information.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. Jennifer,
So
did you have anything? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just say, so at our site, as part of our planning process, we've been replacing a lot of words with universal symbols. So as much as possible, we don't have to, think about translation. We do, and of course we do, but as much as possible, having these universal symbols, even within our own visitor center, replacing words with things like universal symbols so that they're easily recognizable. We do offer our walking trail interpretive guide welcome information in 5 languages. I'm very fortunate to have 5 different native language speakers on my team, so that kind of helps as we're welcoming visitors from all over the world. But I will say that there are very simple, easy trainings that are out there. We found some free ones that were great. We've done some with the Nonprofit Center that really talk about how to welcome visitors from all over the world, and just getting those ideas about universal symbols and things that are easy to implement, because I really want to be conscientious that this is around the corner. We don't have a ton of time. Everyone's limited in capacity and resources, but I want to say that there's a lot that we can do that will fit within our budget. So that's something we should really be mindful of. I will also note, in terms of what Emily said about travel, there's no public transportation to the park. This is something that is definitely an issue, even as we direct people how to wayfind and get to us, especially as visitors are coming from all over. Making sure that you have transportation to your sites that not only is easy to get to, but easy to find as you plan your visit online is really critical. So that's something we're really talking about now, is like public transportation and actually getting to these sites.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. I did want to go back to something, Jennifer, you mentioned in your kind of opening remarks. You were talking about the Bucks 250 partnership. And I was hoping to dig into this idea of partnership a little bit more. And if you could talk about kind of how those partnerships started, and I guess Emily, to the idea of the Perkiomen Valley 250, how you've gotten communities to engage, how those things came about, and how you keep folks kind of engaged and at the table. Jennifer, do you want to take that one first?
Yeah, so I will say that in terms of strategic partnership, I'll start maybe with the what not to do's. Don't ignore what people are doing. Don't ignore what dates people are focusing on. If you're like us, a local historic site or a tourism entity, kind of knowing what the other entities are doing, talking to like a larger partner, like Visit Bucks County has some great like roundtables with tourism sites, because you definitely want to make sure you're not planning events the same days as other people. And you want to make sure you're not offering a similar experience. And if you are, is there an opportunity for collaboration? We're all limited capacity, resources, crowds, right? If we're hosting events on the same dates. And there's several local organizations that are hosting 250s. So definitely being mindful of what's out there. But in terms of starting partnerships, definitely, if you have an interest in this, reaching out to a site like Visit Bucks County, reaching out to your local government officials and saying, hey, is there like a space to kind of put something together? That's really how the Bucks 250 started. County commissioner kind of got a group of leaders within different organizations that are focused on teaching local history. But I will also say that think outside the box. Like we one of the really cool strategic partnerships we have is that we wanted to build a Durham boat that visitors could climb into. And we started by looking at some local boat builders, and really creatively, we're like, is there another institution, nonprofit, someone who's a tourism site, has a following? So we're actually partnering with Independence Seaport Museum to build this Durham. It's gotten a lot of great press coverage. They're doing stuff on their social, we're doing stuff on our social. So we're kind of leveraging each other's audiences. We actually have visitors from the city that have come out to the park since then. We're actually taking a large group in a couple weeks out to the city. So really kind of collaborating in a way where we're just exposing our following to other resources in the community that are teaching local history. So definitely thinking outside the box, being creative, asking if there's a space for partnership, not making partnerships that don't make sense, right? Partnership for the sake of partnership doesn't help any of us. But there's just, having those conversations and being informed is a great way to do that.
Yeah, just to echo what Jennifer was talking about, collaboration rather than competition is key. So identifying that everyone is going to have a 4th of July celebration, and that's fine. But what are the other programs? How are we fleshing out the rest of this sort of multi-year 250th experience for folks? How are we engaging communities that might not otherwise come to our historic site? Those are key questions that from local historical societies all the way up to large-scale museums are thinking about for the 250th. I also wanted to mention, you don't have to be a Revolutionary War site to have something to do with the 250th. We are extremely fortunate in this area in New Jersey and Pennsylvania to have the battlefields and the witness houses and the sites that we have. By comparison to other 250th efforts in Hawaii, for example, they're much more programmatically focused rather than site-based. But still, there's a lot of opportunities for programming that's more civic engagement broadly. So not limiting yourself. That said, I'm a big advocate for not reinventing the wheel and not trying to do everything yourself. So bringing together the historical expertise in your region with the folks who have the infrastructure expertise and the programming expertise, that's a great opportunity for partnership. And as Jennifer was saying, in terms of the what not to do, don't presume an understanding of what the 250th has to be. When we first started talking about Perkiomen Valley 250 and thinking about what kinds of events would be happening in our region, we had one municipal official who thought we were talking about one giant 4th of July parade stretching through all of the towns, which, having been a drum major in high school, that might have killed me, having to march that far. Meanwhile, we have other municipal officials who are members of the Daughters of the American Revolution, or very engaged with Valley Forge National Historical Park. So they have a much deeper understanding of what's possible. So just trying to meet people where they are and creating events that make sense for your communities, as well as sort of creating opportunities like Jennifer was talking about for ongoing engagement, whether it's with historic spaces, green spaces, local businesses. The 250th can be a starting point for people who are coming to the region for the first time, but also for people who make their lives here.
That is a really great segue, because the next thing I really wanted to talk about was really how do you make this more relevant to visitors, or really, you talked about, Emily, that like make it a multi-year event. So we're not just investing for the 4th of July next year, but we're investing for, kind of longer growth and also appealing, investments that would make sense to residents as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as you talk with 250th planning organizations in your area, with historic sites, with other sort of civic-minded groups, you'll find out that there's quite a bit to commemorate. There's a lot of historic sites that opened to the public in 1976, so they are celebrating their 50th anniversaries. There's a lot of sites that have their own anniversaries, or even towns that have their own anniversaries. I mentioned Green Lane Borough just celebrated their 150th. We have a few municipalities in our area who are celebrating their anniversaries over the next few years. Limerick Township, for example, is going to be 300 next year, and to them, that's a higher priority than the 250th of the United States. So there's all these different opportunities for engagement around the idea of memory, of how a place has changed over time. And also recognizing how the demographics of our region have changed since the last major anniversary in 1976. And so there's a lot of people who grew up here who probably went to parades and have memories of things, but there's also a lot of people who are new to this history and this sort of idea of the Delaware Valley as being key to the independence of the United States. So there's all sorts of opportunities for both history-based sort of education and engagement, but also just appreciation for this area. And even if you think about the indigenous history that predates the United States, there's tons of opportunities. So don't limit to just Independence Hall and those kinds of places, but really think about how to use these anniversary moments to tell human stories and to encourage community building. That's been really key. And I say this as someone who thinks about the Declaration of Independence every day and writes about it. But I'm encouraging you to, go beyond that and to really do what makes sense for your area.
Awesome, thank you. Spencer or Jennifer, did you guys want to jump in there?
Yeah, I just want, one of the things that I wanted to say if we're talking about how to leverage this for a multi-year effort is that, the common theme from today's conversation is supporting local, being unique, creating experiences. And those are good economic development, tourism development strategies, regardless of America 250. So if you can really think about what you're doing now as setting the foundation for a long-term effective economic development strategy. Yes, it's maybe tailored specifically for America 250 at the moment, but really it is the foundation for a much more longer-term strategy overall.
Awesome. Okay, I want to, I guess, put a question for the audience out there, and I think this is something that folks could just put in the chat box if they like. So, I guess I want to know kind of if folks are think that their communities would be hosting something related to A250 if they have things planned, and if so, if there's a local site, maybe more than one that you're trying to highlight for visitors. So, if folks that are out there that are representing a community, if you want to add your thoughts in the chat, we want to see kind of what you're thinking around A250 if you're going to be hosting an event or highlighting something related to A250 in some way. So we'll leave that there. And while folks are kind of adding thoughts in the chat, I guess one of the questions I have here, and I don't, maybe this is more Jennifer, kind of what kind of support do you think would be most helpful from regional and state partners as folks, as communities and organizations are planning these kinds of events?
Yeah, so I want to answer that question, but I also kind of want to address something that Ellie kind of had mentioned in the chat here about New Jersey. So I think that I definitely don't want to look at like any barriers to partnership. And I will say that we work very closely with New Jersey. I'm actually from Princeton. I'm a Jersey girl, so I'm a big fan of the work that they're doing over there. So in thinking like strategically and things that are helpful, I actually was just at a really great meeting a few weeks ago where, a few days ago, where we were talking about the visitor center that Princeton is looking at building and the new visitor center that Washington Crossing, New Jersey is building. So having conversations with sites across state lines is really important, and having a space for that dialogue and meeting with partners that have those common interests, because we probably do more with New Jersey than we do with Pennsylvania. The reason being is that if, really short history of the crossing, Washington will cross, he'll fight 3 battles over a period of 10 days, and this is called the 10 Crucial Days. So we do a fantastic bus tour where we take groups into New Jersey, and every year this is a sold out program. We actually do field trips on a regular basis that take students from the park into New Jersey, into Princeton. So we really market this region kind of as like a 10 Crucial Days region, and really focusing with like and working with partners closely in New Jersey to talk about it. Like I mentioned this Continental Line event. How are we going to get people into New Jersey for this 3-day event? Because it just starts here in Pennsylvania. How are we going to bus people into Trenton? How are we going to bus them into Princeton? How are we going to find places for them to stay that make sense for them? How are we going to market this? How are we going to get businesses to partner with us? One of the things that we've noticed a lot is we have a lot of like food vendors and people reaching out saying, hey, can we come to your events to draw awareness to our businesses beyond 2026? But thinking about, like I said, we don't even have public transportation to the park. How are we going to address some of these broader issues? And we've been meeting with Mercer County. We've been meeting with places locally like Princeton battlefields, because there's more strategic battles, more victories and more battles fought in New Jersey than anywhere else. So definitely making sure that there's a space for a dialogue and this brainstorming and resources to have conversations across those state lines, so that there's not barriers to partnerships. And so there is a lot of opportunity for extended stay. So that's really something, if you're asking kind of what we need, I'm just, again, thinking outside the box, having conversations cross state lines, and making sure that we're really looking to kind of think holistically about the events we're putting together.
I see nodding from Emily as well. Do you or Spencer have anything else to add to that one?
No, I think Jennifer covered it really well. I would just add that Pennsylvania is weird because we have so many townships and boroughs, and even the residents of those places may not know where the sort of boundary lines are. So yeah, just really thinking regionally, thinking in terms of how to tell the stories, like Jennifer was saying with the 10 crucial days. I think that's a great approach, and that requires partnership, but also kind of collaboration with a lot of different municipal officials, thinking about public safety as well, making sure that our police and fire and EMTs are prepared for these events. So that I think we want to think about the entire sort of area rather than the sort of niche places that are drawn on the map, and really think about where people are going to be coming from, where they're going to want to go next.
I also just wanted to mention quickly, Navy 250 has done a great job of this. My educators are actually down in Camden today with our Durham boat doing interpretation, talking about coming to the park, learning more about, the revolution, going into Philadelphia. But Navy 250 has done a great job of collaborating across those state lines, both with New Jersey and Philadelphia, and really making sure that they're addressing things like safety, infrastructure, travel and tourism. So if anyone is interested in kind of learning more about that, they would be a great resource.
And
Awesome. Yeah, I saw that all of that starts, or a lot of those big events kick off today through the weekend. And so they are a real-time example of that collaboration happening.
And
So go ahead,
Amy,
Spencer.
if I could just
Yeah.
add too, yeah, I think the overarching strategies that have been discussed, whether it's collaboration, leveraging the assets that make your community unique, thinking about what your local community and beyond just the revolution. I think those strategies, those concepts, those themes apply no matter what side of the region that you're on, whether it's Pennsylvania or New Jersey.
Right. Thank you, Spencer. Yeah, that was something I also wanted to highlight, that I think a lot of these concepts are universal, and hopefully there's something for all folks to take back with them. We did just get another question in the chat box, but I do want to be mindful of time. We were going to switch over at 10:30. So Judith, I'm going to try to, I think maybe Stacy, if it was a question about the share a ride that maybe you could answer in the chat, we'll follow back up with you around that one. But I think with that, we're kind of up at our time, and I want to thank Jennifer and Emily and Spencer for their wonderful presentation and discussion. I learned so much. I am admittedly not a kind of tourism kind of in this world, but I thought it was fascinating. And I mean, it's about building community. So I think there's a lot that we can all learn here. Yeah, so I think with that, thank you. And we'll pass it over to Tom.
Hi, everybody. So I'm going to talk about DVRPC's Supporting Communities program. Can we go to the next slide? So Supporting Communities is a program that's working to better connect the transportation infrastructure needs of municipalities all over our region, so both in PA and New Jersey, with available funding and resources for public engagement, planning, and implementation. Next slide, please. So I'm going to share some examples of each of those things. So our engagement team has worked recently with the Borough of Westchester in Chester County on helping them develop an engagement plan for their new transportation plan. So they've worked with Westchester Borough's Transportation Advisory Committee on identifying some engagement priorities, and then helping them develop materials and an engagement strategy for talking to the public and better understanding what their transportation needs are. And they did that with the help of one of our consultants, Connect the Dots. So yeah, they needed help with engagement, and we helped to provide some expertise in that area. Next slide, please. So an example of us helping with planning was in Norristown. So this is a project that I actually worked on with the borough, and we had a couple of different things that we helped them with. So one thing that a community a nonprofit brought to us was that there is an issue at a particular intersection where there are lots and lots of kids crossing the street and people were running stop signs and generally driving poorly. And so we helped them design and develop a design for this intersection, and we actually helped them win approval at their city council, and the first parts of it just got implemented this month. So we helped directly on the ground with getting that constructed. We also, on their behalf, applied for a Safe Streets for All grant through the Federal Highway Administration. And that's a project that we'll be working on this year, where we're helping them to develop a high injury network and a new safety plan for the borough. And that will qualify them for future implementation funding through Safe Streets for All. Next slide. And then as far as implementation goes, we worked with Pemberton, which is in Burlington County, New Jersey. So folks from our capital planning group reached out to Pemberton because they'd seen that back in 2023, they had applied for some funding, but didn't receive that funding due partly to some issues with their application. So we sort of jumped in and helped to provide some technical assistance. We reviewed some of their materials and coordinated with their county engineer and staff. And this past year, they submitted a new application that was much improved and will hopefully help to get them some grant funding. So that's one of the ways that our capital planning and implementation group can sort of step in and help. So that is supporting communities. I want to talk about another upcoming initiative. So DVRPC is launching a new initiative called Municipal Help Desk, and it's pretty simple web page that will include an intake form that municipalities can fill out to be connected with staff experts. So I know that DVRPC might sometimes be it might be hard to know who to reach out to if you have a question. So this is meant to be sort of a one-stop shop where you'll be directly connected to a staff member who will help you to answer your question. And it's generally an effort to expand our support for local governments and to make our resources and programs more approachable and easier to access. So that website has not launched quite yet, but we will send out that information once we have launched. But in general, we just want to make it easier for you to connect with our programs and get your questions answered. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Thanks, Tom. Does anyone have any questions of Tom about our municipal help desk or resources, or if there was any lingering questions from the discussion, we have time to address.
So if anybody does have questions, I've put my email in the chat if you would like to reach out and learn more about either supporting communities or we can talk about the Municipal Help Desk.
Yeah. I also want to add that DVRPC is going to continue our convening with our A250 partners moving as we get closer to our date, and understanding that regional collaboration is important. We do talk to Delaware and New Jersey as well to make sure that we're all rowing in the same direction and highlighting the same thing. So and I see Spencer also added a comment about that. No hands raised. Okay. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming today and joining in on the conversation, and ask anyone who's here, if you notice someone that wasn't here that should have been here, please reach out to them and let them know about our new exchange, this new forum we have. We'd love to have more involved in the conversation. We are planning our next municipal exchange for January 16th. We're still exploring topics, but building off our survey results around your municipal challenges and needs, possibly looking at something around zoning implications, transportation needs, or even new land use challenges for our partners. I also want to ask, at the close of the meeting, a survey is going to appear. If you could please take a few moments and provide us some feedback. It helps us in planning our future forums. I'll also be sending out a highlight email with a link to today's meeting if you wish to view it again, as well as adding some resources in there for our partners to pursue grant opportunities. I also want to, again, thank our speakers, Jennifer and Emily, for joining us today and sharing your knowledge, Spencer and Tom for taking time to join the conversation, and in the background, Lily and Drake for manning the chat room. I appreciate your help. So thank you, everybody, and have a great day, and we'll see you in January.